As far as we know, nothing alive can survive in the deep ocean trench. This is an area of the ocean that is so deep that if you were to put a submarine down there, it would implode long before it reached the bottom. And yet scientists have found creatures living at these extreme depths. So what are these places and how do they work? And more importantly, why should you care? Well, stick around till the end and I'll tell you all about it. First, what even is a deep ocean trench? It's basically this. You see, our planet Earth has these giant tectonic plates floating on top of the hot, gooey mantle. And these plates aren't just sitting still. They're moving around all the time, albeit very slowly, like only a few centimeters per year. Eventually, two of these plates will collide. Now, depending on what kind of plates it is, one plate might slide under the other or they might crumple up like paper and fold together. But for the sake of this story, let's imagine the Pacific plate running into the North American plate. Because the North American plate is made of continental crust which is less dense than the oceanic crust that makes up the Pacific plate, the lighter North American plate gets shoved on top of the denser Pacific plate and pushed down into the mantle. As this happens, the edge of the North American plate bends downward, forming a deep valley in the process. The result is something like this. These are called deep ocean trenches and they're some of the deepest features on Earth. Here in the United States, the deepest ocean trench nearby is the Mariana Trench, which reaches depths of over 6.8 miles or more than 11 kilometers. That's deeper than the Grand Canyon and Mount Everest combined. In fact, it is so deep that if you were to stack up 3 Empire State Buildings on top of each other and drop them straight down into the Mariana Trench, they still wouldn't reach the bottom. Now if you take a quick look at a map of the world, you'll notice that the Mariana Trench is located near the eastern coast of the Philippines and the western coast of Mexico. This isn't a coincidence because, as it turns out, deep ocean trenches tend to be located along the edges of large land masses where the Earth's crust is thinner and easier to bend. But while the Pacific Ocean has the deepest trenches, it's not the king when it comes to the longest trenches. That title goes to the Atlantic Ocean and its famous Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Now the funny thing about this ridge is that it's just actually a mountain range and not a trench. But the good news is that it has its own trench. You see, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge stretches for over 40,000 miles or over 64,000 kilometers. For comparison, that's longer than the entire length of the continental United States. It's so long, in fact, that it wraps all the way around the globe. So it's easy to think of it as a single continuous mountain range. However, this is not the case. Instead, it's actually made up of smaller segments that meet together at special points called diverges. And as you may have guessed, it's here where new ocean floor is formed. You see, beneath the ocean, the Earth's mantle is hot enough to melt rock, creating what's called magma. This magma is less dense than the solid rock surrounding it, so it bubbles up toward the surface. When the magma reaches the ocean floor, it cools and solidifies, pushing the old seafloor away and out of the way. Over millions of years, this process has created huge swaths of new ocean floor. And in the process, it also creates mountains. But what does this have to do with trenches? Well, at these diverges, the seafloor is created, but elsewhere, the seafloor is destroyed. What's happening is that the seafloor is being pushed away from the diverges in both directions until eventually it reaches a deep ocean trench where it's just pulled back down into the mantle. Basically, the seafloor has a lifespan, and when it's run out of real estate, it gets recycled back into the Earth's mantle. Now, while it sounds like this would create a lot of heat as the seafloor is heated up and melted, it turns out that most of the heat comes from within the Earth itself. You see, the Earth's core is extremely hot, and this heat radiates outward toward the surface. So as the seafloor is dragged down into the Earth, it's met with temperatures as high as 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 2,760 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective, the hottest parts of a typical oven are only around 500 degrees Fahrenheit or 260 degrees Celsius. So needless to say, these are some seriously hot temperatures. And here's where things get interesting, because despite these extreme conditions, scientists have found living things living in the deep ocean trenches. Take, for example, these guys. At first glance, they don't exactly look like your typical sea creature, do they? They look more like pieces of string or maybe a clump of thread. But trust me, they are alive. These are called Xenophyophores, and they're single-celled organisms that live in the deep ocean trenches. Xenophyophores come in a variety of shapes and sizes, but they're all made up of a single cell. And yes, that means they're technically gigantic because no other cell is bigger than theirs. Some species are even visible to the naked eye. Can you imagine a single cell that large? Well, it's true. But these Xenophyophores aren't just huge. They're also incredibly hardy. They can survive in extreme environments where no other life can. And that includes deep ocean trenches. Here, Xenophyophores feed on particles of organic matter that rain down from the surface. And in doing so, they form the basis of the deep ocean food chain. Take for example, the Japanese spider crab. While it might look cute with its beady little eyes and tiny little legs, don't be fooled. This crab is a ruthless predator and it feeds almost exclusively on Xenophyophores. And it's not the only one either. There are many other animals that have been found to feed on Xenophyophores, including sea cucumbers, starfish, and worms. So what's the big deal about Xenophyophores? Why should you care? Well, for starters, they're just plain weird. I mean, a single-celled organism that large. That's just not something you see every day. But beyond their sheer size, Xenophyophores are also really hardy. They can survive in environments that are hostile to most life, which makes them really interesting to scientists studying the limits of life on Earth. Plus, they form the basis of the deep ocean food chain. So they play a really important role in the ecosystem. Oh, and did I mention that they glow in the dark? Yeah, most Xenophyophores are bioluminescent, which means they can produce their own light. It's not entirely clear why they do this, but it could be to attract prey or maybe to communicate with each other. Whatever the reason, it makes them really cool to look at, and it's another reason why they're so interesting to scientists. Now, while Xenophyophores are definitely the stars of the show, they're not the only things that can survive in deep ocean trenches. There are also bacteria that can thrive in these extreme environments. And that's not surprising given that bacteria are known for their ability to adapt to a wide range of conditions. But what is surprising is the diversity of these bacteria. Scientists have found all sorts of different types living in deep ocean trenches, and they're all doing different things. Some are breaking down organic matter and recycling the nutrients inside. Others are using chemicals from the Earth's mantle to make their bodies run. And still others are just hanging out, not doing much of anything. But even these seemingly lazy bacteria are important because they help us understand the limits of life on Earth. After all, if life can exist in a deep ocean trench, then it can probably exist anywhere. So what's the point of this story? Why should you care about deep ocean trenches? Well, for starters, they're just plain cool. I mean, who doesn't love a good monster story? But beyond that, deep ocean trenches are important for a number of reasons. For one, they're home to some of the most extreme environments on Earth. And yet life has found a way to thrive in these environments. That's pretty amazing. But perhaps even more important is the fact that deep ocean trenches are one of the last unexplored frontiers on our planet. There's still so much that we don't know about them, and that makes them a really exciting place to study. Who knows what we might find down there? Maybe one day soon we'll discover new species of animals or even new forms of life that we never even imagined. Until then, though, deep ocean trenches will continue to fascinate and terrify us in equal measure. And with that, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something new. If you did, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.